Congressman, it's good to see you. Welcome back to Bloomberg TV and radio. Is that the end game here? We're doing well, although we're kind of in the dark on what we're going to learn tomorrow. And I wonder if we have this announcement of reciprocal tariffs, maybe even across the board tariffs tomorrow. And by Friday, they start to fall down based on the reaction from some of our trading partners. Is that the best case scenario?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball as to what the president's going to announce tomorrow. You know, I think the whole thing, and I don't know we're doing a great job of educating the public, is the terrible trade practices that other countries have had against American goods. And I think the president is just trying to level the playing field. You know, I got asked a question a little while ago, what about the revenue generated from tariffs? I hope we don't generate one penny, because I'd like everybody to level the playing field. You know, Senator Cruz said, free trade. I don't know how well we do that with countries like communist China, because they're heavily subsidized industries. But we want to make it as clear as possible that we can put American goods in other countries just as they put their goods in ours. And doing a free and a reciprocal trade kind of economies between countries really is what the president is trying to obtain.
Well, so, Congressman, on your point about revenue not being the appropriate objective here, perhaps, when you hear the White House trade advisor, Peter Navarro, suggesting things like tariffs raising $6 trillion over 10 years, $600 billion a year, you don't put any credence behind those numbers.
Well, not that it couldn't. It very well could. But again, that should not be our end goal with this. It should not be generating revenue. It should be rather opening up trade, opening up markets for American goods and services. That's what the end game is. It should not be about raising money. It should be about actually putting our goods in other countries that heretofore really have been preventing us from doing so.
What are you hearing from your constituents, Congressman? You know the flurry that some of the town hall meetings started in the media, but you're not only isolated to town hall meetings. Part of your job, even when you're in Washington, is dealing with constituent services, taking phone calls. What's the biggest worry, particularly when you hear from farmers in your state?
Yeah, I think it's the uncertainty, to be very honest and very objective, is what's going to happen, when's it going to happen, how bad, if any, are the downward effects going to be. And, you know, I'm on the trade subcommittee on Ways and Means, and we've been talking about this. You know, how do we react to this? Is this the right thing? And if so, how much? A lot of this is in the president's hands, and, you know, it's up to us to either like it or defend it. Or not defend it. I personally think it's a good idea. Really where it matters is what the details of what comes out tomorrow.
Well, you say it's in the president's hands, but Congressman, given your role in the House of Representatives, isn't this part of your Article I duties as well? Should you and your colleagues not have a say here?
Yeah, and actually, Kaylee, it is constitutionally part of our duties, and we should have a say in this. That said, you know, the last administration for the last 4 years did absolutely nothing on trade, absolutely nothing. And so we're in a very, very difficult situation. Whatever the president puts in, we have to either agree with or disagree with. But he has the ability and the power to put some of these things into action immediately. It takes a much more measured approach and a much more, defined approach to really do it as far as Congress goes. But, the president sees the action and sees this as doing now. Good Lord, the first 100 days have been like a hurricane as far as his action. And he just wants fair trade, and he wants free trade, rather, and he wants things squared away as quick as possible.
It's not the only story that's cooking right now in Washington. Maybe closer to home for you, Congressman, is the tax debate, the tax and spend debate that's happening on Capitol Hill that will lead to a reconciliation package that Republicans are working on here. And, of course, that includes extending or making permanent the Trump tax cuts. There's a big argument right now about how much to cut and how much it would cost to make permanent the Trump tax cuts. The Senate has some very important votes to get the ball rolling procedurally this week. As a member of the House Republican Conference, are you worried that the Senate is going to take control of numbers that your caucus might not accept?
Yeah, I'm worried about that, because we won't get it passed if our caucus, we're the real linchpin. The House is the linchpin here, not the Senate. They have a little bit more wiggle room than we do. I think some of the debate is is this baseline? Is it not baseline? What's it going to cost? Is it pro-growth? As far as I'm concerned, I want everything to be pro-growth. And the number one thing we have to look at is what is it effect on our debt? That's why we're doing all of this. I think in part why we're looking at all of these things is to not grow our debt and actually pull back so the world actually thinks we're going to pay back and we're good for our debt, or good for what the money that we owe. Whether the Senate does it first or not, I think a little bit is mute. We really have to look at what the folks in the House are able to tolerate as we move forward, regardless of what the Senate says.
Well, I wonder what the tolerance will be around the level the SALT cap is taxed at, Congressman. Bloomberg is reporting today that the package Republicans are in the process of drafting would include lifting the SALT deduction to $25,000 from the current $10,000. Does that jive with what you're hearing? Do you think that's an appropriate number?
Well, I don't know where they get that, because we've been discussing it in closed-door meeting on Ways and Means. I think that's some up to conjecture. You can pick any number that you've heard. But I think really that when push comes to shove, we want to try to help those members in the SALT states. The Senate doesn't have to worry about that at all, because they just don't have that. They don't have SALT states per se in Republican states. Where we get to in a sweet spot really is going to be the dials that we've been turning back and forth. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see what surprises we can deliver for the American people when we get through our deliberation.
Just to follow up quickly, Congressman, does that number sound difficult to swallow? It sounds like we might have captured you in the throes of negotiation here. Kevin Brady was on with us a bit earlier, former chair of the Ways and Means Committee in the House, Republican from Texas. He thought something closer to 20 might be the final version of that. How about you?
I tell you, Joe, if I said Chairman Smith, who probably has all the rooms bugged and everything, would be after me in a heartbeat, because we're really not supposed to talk about it. So I best say nothing at this point, right?
All right, pleading the fifth. Congressman, we appreciate you answering the questions that you can. Republican Congressman Greg Murphy of North Carolina joining us on Balance of Power this evening. Thank you so much.